Welcome to Crimes That Shocked Japan. This episode, the murder of Lindsay Hawker. The place, Tokyo, the date 2007. A megacity of 35 million inhabitants, a true 24-hour city of neon lights, action and adventure to explore. A blend of natural wonder and human eccentricity, home to manga, karaoke, maid cafes, and more Michelin stars than London and Paris combined. A paradise for the young traveller, but in a country when less than 2% of the population speak English, finding work can be difficult. The answer? Teaching English. Every year, thousands of young English teachers land in Japan to teach English all over the country. For the vast majority, the experience of a lifetime. For one, tragedy and murder. Lindsay Hawker, 22, was from Coventry in England, a much-loved daughter of Bill and Julia Hawker. She had arrived in Japan in 2006 and was working for the Nova School of English in Koiwa, a fairly nondescript district in West Tokyo, north of Edogawa. On the 21st of March 2007, Lindsay is approached by a young man as she stood outside the Nishi Funabachi station. He struck up a conversation with her and even ended up following her as she cycled home. He gained her trust by discussing biology, something that Lindsay had studied at university before travelling to Japan. The young man ended up asking Lindsay for an English lesson, which they agreed to take place in a cafe a few days later. Before leaving, he passed a sketch over to Lindsay of herself with his name, telephone number and email. And so, on the 25th of March, Lindsay met the young man for an English lesson in a local cafe, after which her student says he needs to go back to his apartment to get the money to pay her, and she went along with him in the taxi. Telling the driver she'll be back in a few minutes, she goes upstairs with the young man to receive her fee for the lesson. The taxi driver leaves after 7 minutes as nobody has returned. Lindsay is reported missing the next day. The young man she had met was called Tatsuya Ichihashi, the 28-year-old son of wealthy physicians. His father is a surgeon and his mother a dentist. He is a black belt in martial arts, studying horticulture at Chiba University. Described by the few friends that he had as an excellent athlete, particularly in long-distance running, Ichihashi generally kept to himself. His neighbours at the Gyotoku Sunrise apartment block said he was never any trouble. The only time they did remark on something out of the ordinary was the night when they heard hammering in the apartment. That, it turned out, was Ichihashi ripping the bathtub out of his bathroom. Shortly after Lindsay is reported missing, police, aware of her whereabouts the day before, send 9 officers to Ichihashi's apartment building. Ichihashi suddenly exits the apartment as the police arrive, wearing no shoes, and he evades police by vaulting walls and zigzagging through the narrow streets. The police, who have no walkie-talkies, cannot collate his whereabouts, and he soon disappears into the vast sprawl of Tokyo. The police quickly search his apartment, and on his balcony they find a bathtub filled with sand. A bathtub with a human hand emerging from the top. Lindsay's cause of death was listed by the coroner as asphyxiation. However, the coroner also noted that she had been subjected to a brutal and prolonged assault. He mentioned particularly that this could have taken place over a number of hours before she died. This brutal and disgusting crime sends shockwaves through the United Kingdom, Japan, and the wider world, and a national manhunt is immediately launched. Lindsay's father Bill becomes fixated on finding his daughter's killer, regularly visiting Japan and keeping the story alive. The police released CCTV footage of Ichihashi and Lindsay before she was killed, and quickly Ichihashi's face is at every rail station, police station, ferry terminal, and airport in Japan. Despite this, Ichihashi is determined not to be caught. One defining feature on the young murderer's face was two aligned moles on his left cheek. These moles were the subject of much media attention and appeared on the wanted posters. Using a box cutter, he attempted to gouge out these moles, and using scissors, sliced off parts of his own lip to change his appearance. He travelled down to the south of Japan, his wounded face hidden behind a surgical mask, commonly worn by Japanese, so not to arouse suspicion. He made his way down to Okinawa, and there down to Ohajima, an uninhabited island on the very outskirts and southernmost tip of Japan. Here he lived in a World War II bunker, reportedly fishing to survive and eating snakes he trapped. He read Harry Potter books that Lindsay had recommended to him. At some point, he left the island and made his way to the northern prefectures of Japan, where he worked in unskilled construction. Keeping a low profile, living in dormitories with other workers, he reportedly kept himself to himself and did not choose to interact at all with his co-workers. During this period, Lindsay's father Bill and other family members made numerous trips to Japan, handing out leaflets and appearing on TV. Every avenue was explored, including Ichihashi disguising himself as a woman. After working in construction for a number of months, Ichihashi had saved enough money to undergo a number of professional plastic surgery procedures to further alter his lips and nose. It was at a plastic surgery clinic in Nagoya that staff noticed strange marks on his face, the marks where he had gouged out his moles, and they took photos of him that were later released to the media. Months later, more than 2.5 years after he murdered Lindsay, Ichihashi tried to book passage on a ferry back to Okinawa from Osaka ferry port. He was spotted by another passenger who, suspicious it might be the infamous killer, called police. And after more than 2.5 years on the run, Ichihashi was finally arrested. He was brought back to Tokyo in a media frenzy. Bizarrely, despite his horrific and appalling crimes, he had become something of an idol to adoring female fans. They pictured him as the brooding fugitive on the run, romanticized online through various chat rooms. For the Hawker family, who had travelled back and forth to Japan for the last 2.5 years and felt they had done a large part of keeping this case in the public eye, wanted justice. An eye for an eye. Japan does have the death penalty for murder, although usually for multiple homicides. While awaiting trial, Ichihashi wrote a book outlining his life on the run, where he had travelled to and lived, how he had got away, and the injuries he had suffered at his own hands. He called it Until I Was Arrested. Disgustingly, he had the nerve to actually offer the Hawker families any royalties that the book might earn, plus any royalties from any movies or TV rights from it. This was an offer the family firmly rejected. And on the 21st of July 2011, Tatsuya Ichihashi was sentenced to life imprisonment for the murder of Lindsay Hawker by the Chiba District Court. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.